Have you ever found yourself thinking, I don't understand what is happening in my relationship? You're trying to communicate, but every conversation becomes a fight. You're watching your partner pull away, but they won't actually say why they're pulling away. Or maybe they said they need some space, and yet they're still showing up like nothing has really changed, and you're stuck in this in-between space, confused, questioning everything, trying to make sense of behavior that just does not add up. Here's the part that gets us. It's not just what's happening that hurts. It's not understanding what is happening that makes us distraught beyond words. When you don't have clarity of understanding, your mind starts to fill in the blanks, usually in ways that makes it feel even worse. So today we're going to walk you through what's actually happening underneath these moments and why they feel so confusing and what you can do instead of spinning out of control and second guessing yourself. After all, in this space, we all know minutes can turn into days. Welcome to Love Shack Live. Our podcast is for listeners who find themselves at a relationship's crossroads, who are facing daily conflict and a growing emotional gap and still want to rebuild a bond that feels genuine and lasting. I'm Stacey Bartley, a relationship mentor, and I'm here with my co-host and lover Tom and our daughter Brooke.
Hey, thank you for coming. Welcome to the Love Shack.
Today's episode is a little different from our usual layout. Brooke has been going through our comments, our messages, our DMs, and pulling together real questions from real people who are right in the middle of this kind of confusion and heartbreak. These are not made-up hypotheticals, but real situations where someone is trying to make sense of what's happening in their relationship right now. You're going to hear themes like, I'm trying to communicate, but it keeps blowing up. I can see what's happening, but I don't know what to say. And they say one thing, but their behavior looks completely different. And underneath all that is the same question that we're going to explore together. What is actually going on here, and what do I need to do with it? So instead of tackling just one topic today, we're going to walk you through several of these questions one at a time. And we're going to break down what's happening underneath each one so that you can start to see these patterns more clearly in your own relationship. So, Brooke, let's start with the first question.
The first question is from someone who's really trying to communicate well in their relationship, but keeps running into the same wall. They said, what do you do when your partner gets really emotional every time you try to bring something up? Even when you're being thoughtful, soft, and intentional with how you say it. And they added something that I think is really important. They said, I know it's not my job to regulate her emotions, but her reactions still impact the relationship and what we're able to talk about. So they're stuck in this place of, I want to be honest, but every time I am, it turns into something emotional. And then I feel like I either have to manage it or stop bringing things up altogether. Can you help us understanding what's really happening in this dynamic when someone reacts emotionally, no matter how something is said, and how someone can stay honest without taking on the responsibility for their partner's feelings?
Mm-hmm. Really great question. This is something that we need to talk about and that every human being I know of on the planet, including myself, struggles with. It's that space between where I end and you begin emotionally. And it's really difficult when you see somebody that you love and care about falling apart emotionally. Naturally, we want to reassure them. We want to comfort them. We want to help them see that it's not as bad as they sense or feel it is. And that's just because we're extremely compassionate and empathetic. But nonetheless, that compassion and empathy can cause us to cross over into now feeling responsible for it, or that it's my fault. And then within me, even though I'm trying to be honest, it brings up feelings of guilt, right? I shouldn't say those things because every time I do, this is where they go. So in this place, in this dynamic, that space of where I end and you begin is critically important. Number one, because if you don't say what you need to say, that's not going to create a win for you, because you're going to continue to get resentful because there is no space for me to experience and say what it is I need in the relationship because of how you react to it. So that's not going to take us where we need to go. The truth needs to be spoken, and that's where the relationship needs to be grounded. However, totally understand the empathetic piece. So on the other side of the equation, if somebody becomes upset because of something that I've said, I can say, I can see you're upset. But what I want to invite you to do now is kind of spend some time with this upset for yourself and then come and get me when you're ready to talk about it. It's not that I'm going to step away or back off from what has been said, because that is my irrefutable truth, right? It's important that we're able to travel there. However, we just may not be able to travel there in one conversation. It might take several conversations, which is usually something that kind of blows our minds, because the idea that we carry in our minds when it comes to communication is that we're supposed to handle this in one setting, when the emotion or the need finally becomes so much so that it has to be said and spoken right now, without realizing, no, we can come back to it again and again and again. And it's probably best that we do when everybody has a chance to see, right, what it is that's coming up for them emotionally in the context of the conversation. So all that to say, I reassure you that if these are things that are important for you to say, that it's important that you say them, even though they might translate into an experience for your partner that create this overly expressive emotional reaction. It doesn't mean you shouldn't have said them. Actually, it means that you should say them and then give time for them to kind of like say, look, I can see that this is really hard for you. I can see this is bringing up a lot of emotion in you. Let me know when you're ready to come back around, and we can talk about this again and again and again until we get to a place where we can really understand the emotional driver underneath this for all of us and decide what it is we want to do next. So that's on the person that's asking the question side. But I think it's really important to talk about the emotional escalated expression on the other side of the equation. Let's look underneath what's going on there. Okay. There's two possible scenarios. The most likely one is this, that when this conversation comes up, and it could be a specific set of words, it could be where I go in my own personal narrative or experience of what it is you're expressing. Obviously, I go to a place that brings up a tremendous amount of emotional backlog, or what I call emotional constipation for me. So it's not just talking about the thing that you're bringing up in this moment, which for the person who's asking for that seems very simplistic, very matter of fact. And I don't understand this overly reactive emotion that then is on the backside of it, because there is not the association for the person who's asking or sharing the information or asking the question, but the person who's receiving it has a tremendous amount of emotional backlog attached to the comment that's being said. And they might be traveling to places inside of this conversation that you know nothing about, probably likely are. And these places and spaces that they're traveling to are not necessarily as logical as you might think they are. They're probably emotionally attached to a lot of baggage that might date back historically for them a long way ago, like a long way back, because that's how emotions work, right? I'm not necessarily just talking about it in present day. It's linked back in a history of all kinds of things. So time it gets pushed today, it's like overly sensitive and overreactive. It's also a place where I might all of a sudden, in a double nanosecond, because of what I just described, I can become fatalistic and catastrophic in a heartbeat. So I'm dealing with that. That is not something that you can take on. Going back to where I end and you begin emotionally, the information needs to be shared, but what needs to be navigated is, look, I see you're upset. Say, take some time. Help me understand where you go. Help me understand what's coming up for you. And I might need to get through all of that before we can actually talk about the realities of what needs to be addressed right here, because there's so much backlog of emotional constipation that I can't even really talk about where to go from here, because I'm drowning in the emotional conflict that's attached to what it is I think you're saying. And I really can't even hear what you're saying because I'm so emotionally backlogged. I get lost in my own shit show, so to speak. That's not your fault. It's just where I'm at. So that place of, hey, again, I'm going to say it. This is probably the third time, but I think it's really important. This is your key magical sentence here. Hey, I see you're really emotionally upset. That's totally okay. I'm not going to touch it because it really doesn't have anything to do with me. Why don't you take some time and think about what it is that's happening for you, and then let me know when you're willing to dive into this conversation from a more settled place. Don't back away from the conversation because of the emotional overreaction, because the other likely possibility is all of this can be used as an unintentional way to manipulate the narrative and to avoid talking about the thing that probably needs to be talked about the most. They're not cognitively thinking about that, but because it's difficult, I'm hoping that I won't have to go there because I don't want to. So I'm going to hope that because of my emotional overreaction, you're just going to let this be. That's not good for anybody. There's no winners in that place, not even for the person who's emotionally overreacting. So it's really actually the healthy way is to say, this needs to be said. I understand it's upsetting you. Go think about why it is you're upset here, and then come get me when we're ready to have maybe another handful, dozens of conversations about this so that we can weed through what's really going on here.
I typically am the one who gets in my relationship overly emotional and triggered by something my partner said. It has nothing to do with the current conversation. I'm making up a story in my head, but you could be a perfect example of regulated, loving, gentle, good communicating partner, and the person on the receiving end could still take it badly. And that has nothing to do with that. And I think that can be extremely frustrating because it also doesn't go well when you say to your partner, well, you should get regulated too. That doesn't come across well either. So you could then feel like you're in between a rock and a hard place and there's no solution.
The thing that's tricky about this is we have a belief that I'm responsible for the way that my partner feels. Mm-hmm. That's really the piece that we get hooked into, because it's my fault if I say something and then they overreact or they're highly emotional about it. And that's not true. That's that space of, I'm going to say it again, where I end and you begin. I'm only responsible for myself. And if I have put, like you said, Brookie, the best of intents and the skills and everything I know, and I've done it great, it does not ensure a guarantee that your partner's not going to react to it. It just means that you've taken a measure of risk off the table. Mm-hmm. And we have no control over where our partners and the people that we engage with as a human being are going to go with the things that we say. And when things become highly charged and sensitive, or what we call in our work a trigger, an emotional trigger, those triggers can fire off at things that seemingly don't make any sense to the person who's trying to just express themselves to another person. Nonetheless, the experience of it is the piece I really want to emphasize, is just acknowledge that it was upsetting to the person, and you see that. Nonetheless, right, please take some time and think about what it is you need to express and understand about yourself here. And then let's get together, because I want to hear. It's going to help me understand you better. And it doesn't mean that I should have to back away from the things that are important or the things that need to be said on my side. And that's how we get through it. Commonly, what happens because of that belief that it's my fault is I try. And when it doesn't go well, then I suspend having the conversations at all, which I really wanted to point out in my first conversation about this is not the answer, because it will continue to break the conversation down and the relationship and the intimacy and the connection, etc. If avoiding it was the answer, then it wouldn't turn into something bigger than it already was. Because what's helpful, I want you to see this from the other side, is you need to be able to say those things that need to be addressed. But the person who is overly reacting also needs a place to dialogue through it for themselves so that they can understand the emotional constipation that is highly reactive right now, because I don't. And I think that I don't want to talk about it, but actually you do.
I saw a TikTok yesterday of a mom talking about how her and her daughter worked through a kind of similar conflict of what we're describing here. She said she would look over at the counter and say, "Oh, could you put that cup in the dishwasher?" Or look at the couch and see a blanket and say, "Could you fold that blanket up and put it in the basket?" And her daughter would always say, "But I wasn't using that blanket, or I wasn't using that cup." And then the mom would say, "But I didn't ask if you were using it. I just asked if you could help me out by putting it away." And then she was like, "Let's get to the bottom of the miscommunication here. When I say that, what comes up for you?" And the daughter said, "I feel like you're accusing me of not doing something. I feel like you're accusing me of using the blanket and not putting it away." And the mom said, "I'm so glad we're having this talk because I am never doing that." She said, "If I am accusing you or blaming you, I would tell you. I would say, 'Hey, honey, I saw you using that blanket. How come you didn't put it away? And could you fold it up?'" And the daughter said, "Oh, wow. Okay. Every time you ask me to do something, could you tell me I'm not blaming you?" And then the mom said, "How about we flip it on its head and you just assume I'm never blaming you. And if I am blaming you, I will let you know." And it made me think of all the times we assume that. Like if your partner says, "Hey, honey, could you do whatever?" A lot of times we automatically insert that they're blaming us for not doing it. When the mom said, "Honey, I have a lot of stuff on my plate. I'm simply just scanning the room and seeing something that needs to be done and asking you to do it as a favor. I'm never blaming you for it." And I think it just really struck me, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and again, I'm going to say it because we all get hung up here. Like if I'm wanting to have a conversation, I can be shocked and surprised by how the other person responds to something that seems so simple and easy and non-charged for me. And that happens frequently. And then I feel bad that I even brought it up because now you're just a hot mess. And I had no idea that that was going to be the case. The way through it is not to suspend and shut it down. The way through it is to talk about the upset itself and why that was so impactful for the person that I care about. It helps me not feel like I just need to suck it up because that's not going to go well. And it helps them by helping them be able to talk it out so that they understand themselves and what this huge emotional experience is like for them. That's how they're going to make peace with it. And that's how, as we move forward and progress as a couple, that we can have continued difficult conversations because we don't need to be afraid of where everybody goes. We understand the skills and the principles that are necessary to get through it in the event that it does happen. I understand where I end and you begin emotionally. Yeah.
The next question is from someone who feels like they can actually see what's happening for their partner, but they don't know how to bring it up. They're basically saying, "I can see the patterns. I can see why my partner might be struggling with this, but every time I try to say something, it either shuts things down or feels like I'm overstepping." So now they're stuck in this place of, I feel like I understand what's going on, but I don't know how to say it without sounding like I'm labeling them or criticizing them. How do you share awareness or insight with your partner in a way that creates understanding instead of defensiveness?
You have to present it like a question is the short answer. You have to present it in a way that, "Hey, I'm thinking I might have some thoughts that would help you. Are you in a place I can share them with you?" Or, "Hey, I'm noticing that this might be difficult or creating difficulty for you. Is that true?" The problem is, and why these conversations never go well, is because you are telling me about me. And as much as you think you know my pattern and what it is I'm dealing with, you're not the person who lives within the other person 24/7 every second of the day. And so whenever we're talking about telling someone how they think, how they feel, what to do, how to do it, just know that as a human being in our human experience, those are fighting words. Automatically, because there is some intuitive sense of awareness that you don't know me because I've not revealed these things to you, and there's no way you could potentially know me, as well as a protective mechanism in some place of us that says, I need to uncover and understand these things for myself. So don't you dare tell me who I am, what I think, how I feel, and what I need to do. That is my business, not yours. And as much as you think you know, you don't know, because there's a whole host of things long before you and I came together that have an interplay in regards to how I experience what I experience internally for me. So don't go there. We have to understand that is never going to be a place where I profess that I know more about you than you know. That is going to elicit blame and a really hard wall of defensiveness that's going to come down and rain on our parade. So we have to present it as though, hey, here's some ideas that I might have that would help you. Do you want them? Hey, here's some things that I think might really help you. Do you want to hear them? Because I am an outside objective observer, that could be helpful. But at the end of the day, I need to remember you're going to have to make the call on that. And I'm going to have to acquiesce to that.
I was just going to say, you can't be offended or act like a baby if they say no.
Mm-hmm. If that changes, let me know. I can't tell you how many times in a couple session there will be one partner talking for the other person. Oh, let me just tell you what they're thinking here. Oh, let me tell you what they meant by that. Oh, let me tell you how this is going to go. Oh, no, honey, I got this. It's like, oh boy. Okay. I can see what's going on. One person thinks that they've got it all figured out. And as much as I think I've got it all figured out, with great love and respect, you don't. You're just usurping the narrative and not letting anybody else speak. And what's going on underneath that other person's experience is a shit ton of resentment, right? And the more you do it, the less they're going to tell you.
But also I feel like it can be, that dynamic can occur because one person, I feel like this is probably how it mostly occurs, is that one person, you tell me if I'm wrong, is more comfortable talking about their feelings. So then they get into this pattern where the person that is comfortable talking about their feelings speaks for the person who doesn't feel comfortable talking for their feelings. And the person who doesn't feel comfortable talking about their feelings just says, yeah, you're right, honey, because it's easier than speaking up for themselves. But then that dynamic never ends, and it just gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger until the person who doesn't feel comfortable finds that they have no voice. And that's where their resentment comes from. But in the beginning, it was set up as a way that worked for both people. Like,
I call that outsourcing. Outsourcing versus resourcing.
Just talked about that in our Better Love Club.
We did.
This last Monday night.
So it feels really life-giving. Oh my gosh, I can just take this whole burden off of my shoulders.
And they understand me so much. Yeah.
They understand how I think and how I feel, and I don't have to do the work for myself. That's just such a lovely experience. But you don't realize in the end, it's a total setup. Because you are teaching the person that you're in relationship with that they know you better than you know yourself. And at some point in time, that is going to not be helpful anymore, because I am starting to create deep-seated resentment about all the misinterpretations as it goes on that you don't understand and know about me. And even though I still might not have the ability to turn it into words, the experience internally is that of, like I've already said, deep-seated.
You're getting like squashed down, Yeah.
Oh, don't worry. I'll say that for you. No. I got this all figured out. Oh, honey, you know how this is supposed to go. And what are you going to say? If you've just spent 10 years outsourcing your own thoughts and feelings to somebody who thinks they now know better than you, it's totally a setup where you're going to fall apart. The key principle here is when I speak, I understand myself. And so if you're not speaking for yourself, you don't understand yourself. And that in and of itself creates a tremendous amount of internal conflict.
Yeah.
So it's a setup. Don't take the bait. And realize that the only person that I should be speaking about is me. That's the only one I know for sure.
The next question is from someone who described what they called one of the most confusing and painful relationship experiences they've never had. And they actually referred to it as the avoidant reverse discard. They were in a relationship where their partner never ended things, but over time they slowly shut down. They stopped engaging, avoided hard conversations, withdrew emotionally, and kind of disappeared while still technically in the relationship. So the person was left trying to hold it together, trying to understand what was happening until eventually they were the one that had to walk away. And now they're sitting with this really confusing experience of, did I end the relationship or was I pushed out of it? So the question is, what's happening inside of someone who withdraws like that instead of ending the relationship directly? And how should the person on the receiving end make sense of that?
So anytime you have an avoidant who is not wanting to actually take the responsibility of ending the relationship, well, let's even back up a little bit before that. There is this idea that we have that if I'm the person who ends it, well, then I'm kind of the malicious asshole.
Yeah.
That I'm the one who is going to create the pain, the hurt, the suffering, etc. And that's not untrue. Like if I'm going to be the one that's professing, I don't want to work on the relationship, I've left the relationship a long time ago, and I know it's going to hurt you because you really, really do want the relationship and are willing to do just about anything to keep it in motion. If I don't want to tell the hard truth about that, and I don't want to carry the weight and the responsibility emotionally of ending the relationship, then yes, I'm going to avoid the relationship, but I'm also going to avoid the ending of it. And I'm just going to kind of secretly exit stage left or right and then allow you to end it because you're so frustrated that there's nothing there for you eventually. So I'm going to literally outsource the responsibility of who's going to end it. I'm ending it by my lack of participation in it, but I'm not going to go through the official process of saying so. I'm going to have you do that. So in reality, how do we make sense of this? Well, to be fair, to be honest, the relationship was done when one person stopped participating in it, regardless of whether they officially said, I don't want to be in this relationship or not. Because the truth is, it takes two to co-create in order to have a relationship in the first place. So the minute that somebody does not participate in it is the beginning of the end. So then you come along and say, well, I guess this is over. And I want you to see that with great love and respect as more of a gift for yourself, that there was a delineation in your own experience to say, and now I'm done, so that you could let go of it and move on. But the reality is the relationship was ended when they stopped participating in it. And then you needed to delineate it for yourself so that you could let it go.
I feel like a lot of people in comment sections would say that's the coward's way out.
I mean, wouldn't it be lovely if we as human beings could all be forthright and honest with how we think and how we feel and how we emotionally show up in our relationships? Wouldn't that be a lovely world? But that's not the world we live in.
Yeah.
And there are many cowards who will not step up and say the hard things. They'll just kind of exit stage left and hope that nobody notices. And that is a very real world that we live in. It is a coward's way out. It's a place where I don't know how to handle this. I don't know how to take this on. And so I make it up in my own experience. It's just going to be better if I dip and go missing than actually have the hard conversation and confront it.
I also think it's funny that like we literally think in our little silly heads that, oh, maybe they won't notice I've disappeared,
Wow.
as if that's like even possible. You're talking about a partnership. There's only one other person in the partnership. The one other person is going to notice that you've gone missing and they're going to be heartbroken. But I'm pointing this out because in my head, I'm thinking so many people simply cannot understand how someone could do this. But I want you to see in this, because for the overly emotional, not even overly, just for the people who are comfortable voicing their thoughts and their feelings, this is unthinkable. You could literally never do it.
Well, to be fair, too, I mean, if we were to dig into their story, it might make a lot of sense, and commonly it does. Let's just say I grew up in a family of origin where we didn't talk about hard things. Nobody confronts these kinds of things. They just stop talking, and then everybody kind of adjusts without things being directly spoken. That's not an uncommon experience in households. Maybe it's not around the topic of relationships. Maybe it's around other topics, but maybe it is. Maybe that's how we handle problems, is somebody just kind of slips out the back door. And if that's what I know and that's how I was raised, well, then that's all I know, right? I don't know what I don't know. And so you say something about it and officially end this. Oh, see, in my household, that was death by 1,000 cuts. Like, you're going to have a blanket party out back. So maybe I don't even think to go there. Maybe I don't really know or understand how to even do that. And it was modeled for you, but it wasn't for me. So it could be a total lack of knowing and understanding. I can have even the inkling that I wish I could do that. That does feel like the right way, but I have no idea how to approach it or how to handle the emotional aftermath. I don't know how to do that. And that's terrifying to me. So I'm going to dip out the back door. And then there's the other side of the equation where, kind of related to question number one, where maybe I've tried to say it in the very best way I know how, but the emotional overreaction was such that then that freaked me out. And now I'm just going to slip out the back door. So maybe there's a cause and effect that's happening there as well. There's lots of potential possibilities. And then just to really normalize it for all of us, like, come on, humans. We all have places where we live in illusion because we don't want to confront the hard things within us. It may not be about ending a relationship, but I can share with you a whole host of things that I know I wrestle with. And I have to do a really good job of not living in the illusion and the pretend that it's just going to be fine. That every now and again, I got to take the bull by the horns and stare it down, right? With a lot of courage to face it, whether that's finances or a health issue. Right? Yes. And a relational issue or a parenting issue. Like, sometimes I just want to pretend like it's not that big of a deal and forget about it. We can all relate to that one, can't we? Just to normalize how that happens. Come on. We all do it in some form or fashion. Oh, that's no big deal. It's called rationalization. It's called putting the bill in the drawer and shutting it because I just don't have the bandwidth to deal with it right now. I'm $575,000 in debt. Oh, God. See, just burn it. Put it on fire.
Kick the can down the road.
Yeah, it'll be fine. Honey, want to go out to dinner? It's that. It's that. And now it doesn't make it any easier to swallow when it's happening to us. But I think if we normalize it, we can understand in our own humanness that we all do some degree of that, just hoping that it'll be okay, right? Hoping that I can avoid it or that nobody will bring it up or mention it. The other one that comes to mind is I owe somebody, let's say it's my neighbor, $50. I don't have the $50 to pay him. And so I'm not, oh, hi, June. Oh,
you
hi.
Close your blinds.
Oh, please, for the love of God, don't bring up the fact that I haven't paid you your $50 yet. And then I bump into her at the grocery store, right? What am I doing? I'm like hiding, in the produce aisle, praying to God that she doesn't see me. By the way, the produce aisle wouldn't be a very good place to hide, would it?
No, there's nowhere to hide in the produce aisle unless you crouch down.
Yeah.
That pile of fruit or vegetables
Oh my
is
gosh.
really high.
Oh my gosh. Well, that's what happens here when I don't want to say, you know what, I've got to go now. I'm going to slip out the back door and hope that you don't notice for a minute until I'm long gone. Yeah. Not okay. It's definitely insufferable for the people that we leave hanging. It would be much better if we could muster up the courage to face it. But sometimes as humans, we just don't have that kind of courage in the bank right now. For a whole host of reasons.
All right. The last question is not a slow fade. This question is about an abrupt ending. So this is from someone who's right in the middle of a really painful breakup, and they're trying to make sense of what feels like completely mixed signals. They said, my fiance broke up with me out of nowhere. We've been together for 9 years. We live together, and I'm completely wrecked. But here's what's confusing. He's acting like everything is normal. He still talks to me, still tries to make me laugh. He doesn't want to leave the house even when I've asked for space. And when I say I need no contact to heal, he gets really emotional. So I'm sitting here thinking, you ended this, so why are you still showing up like we're together? And I don't know what to believe or how to actually move forward. It feels like a roller coaster, and I can't actually heal. So the question is, how do we make sense of a situation where someone ends the relationship but continues to show up in ways that feel connected? And what does the person on the receiving end need to understand so they can actually begin to heal?
Really great question. So what's being demonstrated, and by the way, believe people's behavior more so than their words. What's obviously playing out here is somebody who has a lot of fear coming up about the relationship itself. Now, I don't know exactly what's driving it. I wouldn't know that unless I was able to have a conversation with this person, but I can tell you some commonalities to it. Some people are afraid of deep intimacy. So all of a sudden we go deep and I feel like I've never connected with somebody like you and it freaks me out. It feels awkward and uncomfortable. That's a likely scenario, right? Or there's something about the relationship that's just not working for me and I'm not quite sure how to handle it. Or I'm having a lot of doubt inside of myself because I really want this to go well, but I'm afraid that it's not going to go well because of this doubt and insecurity I have internally for me. So I'm just going to abruptly end it so that I can stay off the pain and the heartbreak and the suffering for when it does end, because you don't know what kind of a piece of shit I am. So
let me ask a question that the person might be thinking at this moment. If they were feeling that way and we've been together for 9 years, then why did they propose and then break up with me after they proposed?
Yes, because I'm in and I'm out and I'm in and I'm out. So recognize and realize that emotion, like it comes and goes in waves. And some days I'm really in and I want this. And so I'm going to propose and I'm going to think that's going to be the piece that takes me to the promised land. And then 3 days after I propose, I freak out again and go, what have I done? Oh my gosh, they're going to find out who I am. I'm going to totally blow this apart. Or, oh my gosh, I feel so connected to this person. I don't know what to do with this. So like there's a level of emotion that causes them to get in and get out and get in and get out. And I have to raise my hand here and say, I have been in this place personally, absolutely personally, where I had a beautiful human who would have hung the moon for me, for real, would have done anything that I ever asked them to do, for real. Proposed to me on 2 occasions. On 2 occasions, I said yes. And then on 2 separate occasions, I said no. And so this poor guy, I had him on a roller coaster of a lifetime, and it had nothing to do with him. It had everything to do with me and my own internal unsettled emotional landscape that I didn't know how to communicate and share to him. Sometimes I'd want to get all in and I went, oh my gosh, this is incredible. I can't even describe to you the elaborate like proposals that he would set up and execute, like sparklers and carriages. And I mean, it makes me sad. It makes me really sad to think about it, because we would get so excited and everybody would have these incredible moments of joy. And then a week later, I'm going, what have I done? I know I'm not ready for this. I can't step in here. I have this, and this as a problem. But in my own mind, I'm kind of washing it away, saying, no, it'll be fine. It'll be good. I'll be okay. I'll figure it out. This is a good thing. He loves you. He loves your kids. And I'm going down the checklist, literally, check. But internally, I am such a hot mess and I'm so unsettled that then I have to turn around and say, no, I can't do this. Not once, but twice. So all that to say, the mixed signals comes, it's a demonstration of the behavior where I am in internal conflict emotionally within myself. Some days I am so in, and then the day or two changes and I'm so not okay and unsettled with this. So what do you do about this? What do you do really is the answer that you're probably looking for. And that is to say, look, I see that we're in, to speak to it directly. I see that you're in and you're proposed and then you're out. Could you please take some time and help me understand what you're experiencing emotionally here? Instead of me trying to figure it out with all of my crazy notions, it would be better to let them tell you what's going on. And that would have been life-giving for me, to be able to have a safe place to say, gosh, I'm in and I love you and I'm excited. I'm excited to build a future. And then here's what comes up for me on the backside. That's the conversation that needs to be had. We're going to speak directly to the roller coaster behavior, and they may or may not talk about it, but at least you know that's your best option and your best path forward to keep the crazy making from your side from happening. The crazy making on the other side is I keep trying to figure out what it's about and what's going on and how to make sense of it, when really I can't. There's no conflict for me. So when I'm seeing that roller coaster ride happen on the other side, I absolutely just need to speak to it. Say, hey, I see you're in, you're out. What are you experiencing? What's happening for you so that I can understand what's going on?
And then what would you give her advice about for, like, he doesn't want to leave the house even when she's asked for space and she wants no contact to heal and he gets really emotional?
Well, it's he doesn't want to lose her,
Yeah.
but he doesn't want to get all in either.
Yeah.
To make sure that he still has an option if he can pull it together to have her, because he wants her sometimes. And she might have to, after several rounds of this, it really would be important for somebody to maintain their own sanity and sense of well-being to say, look, I've got to be done with this because I can't live in this kind of in-out behavior.
Land of maybe. Yeah.
Land of maybe. I'm not willing to do that. So we need to reroute. You've got to move out, get your own place. I've got to move on with my life. Maybe work on finding a place of stability inside of yourself, and then come look me up and I'll see where I'm at that point in time, and we'll decide if we want to give this another go or not. That really is your best step. You know, it's a very logical step, because every time they say, no, I'm in, you want to go, oh, thank goodness, only to find yourself in a repeat pattern. That's probably going to happen for a few rounds before we start to catch on that, oh my gosh, every time you get in, you get afraid and then you pull out. And I only can do so many rounds of that. And then I've got to preserve my own sanity and say, I can't do this anymore. You got to find a place to stabilize yourself and then look me up. I'll see where I'm at then and there. If you heard yourself in any part of today's episode, in the confusion and the mixed signals and that feeling of trying to figure out what's really actually happening, you don't have to navigate this alone. Sometimes what you need isn't more guessing. In fact, it's probably the last thing you need. What you need is answers that are sure to bring stability, clarity, emotional survival for yourself, and staying connected during difficult times. That's exactly what our clarity calls are for. And you can book one at stacybartley.com/apply. I want you to know on these calls, there's no pressure. There's no expectations. Just a real conversation with another human to help you get your footing again. And by the way, that incredible human is my husband, Tom. He's pretty spectacular at this. After all, he has to deal with me. Coming in hot, honey, coming in hot. He's a really good grounding force, and I'm sure he will be a good grounding force for you too. Follow the fun today is bloom where you are. After all, it's spring. And if you're listening to this in real time, this was filmed right before the Easter break or spring break that many of us are celebrating and experiencing. And so I think it's important for us when spring comes to understand that wherever you are in the life journey, that it's important for you to bloom where you are, even in the uncertainty, even in the struggle. And so let me ask you this. What does it look like to come back to life in your own world right now, regardless of what's going on? That's important. Some suggestions that I have for you are maybe clean out one space, open the windows, soak up some sun, buy some fresh flowers, dig in the dirt, start something new, seek out something that makes you laugh. I had my daughter buy me roller coaster tickets for my birthday. I'm so excited. That's my something new. So what is it for you? Where is it you can bloom right here, right now, where you are? The song for today is Layla Hathaway's That Was Then. This song, it's a really good one. It's, you probably know I'm more of a soul kind of girl. I kind of try and switch it up, but I always kind of tend to go back to the sultry soul. She has a song about this was then, this is now. It was a lifetime that passed through my fingers, so much so that I didn't know. And then a light shined down and showed me how. And that was then, and this is now. And I think when we're going through times of challenge, we don't know. And it's okay to not know, but it can feel scary to not know. Without realizing if I'll just stay on the journey, if I'll just keep one step in front of the other, there will be a moment in time where I do know. And then I'll look back and go, oh, wow, this is now, that was then. You can listen to the song along with our entire playlist by searching up Love Shack Live playlist on Spotify. Thank you so much for being here inside the Love Shack with us today. And if this conversation gave you even one moment of insight, please consider sharing it with someone you care about. You never know who's quietly sitting in this same exact place. And if it's helped you personally, please also consider subscribing and leaving us a review. And remember, love isn't enough, but skills are. Learn them, practice them, and live them. Bye-bye for now.
All right, it's time to leave the Love Shack. But before we part ways, we want you to know our door is always open and we'll leave the porch light on, ready to welcome you back whenever you need a dose of relationship wisdom. For more resources and tools, visit us at loveshacklive.com to dive deeper into the topics we've explored and find additional support for your relationship journey. Stay connected by subscribing to our podcast. Thank you for being part of our Love Shack Live community.